and welcome to another edition of the Big Nick Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Yoke. Brad is away this Saturday morning, so we do have a very special guest filling in. Former contributor for the Daily Knicks, but most importantly, he's a current site expert for the Arkansas Razorbacks, which is important for Knicks fans because the Razorbacks are projected to have 3 first-round picks coming this year, and his career as an actual assistant principal for an elementary school. So the very intelligent and very well-traveled Max Hoover, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I don't think anyone has ever used the descriptor well-traveled to describe me, but I love it. I think it's something that I want to start putting in bios that I write about.
I mean, how many places have you lived in now throughout the States? It sounds like it was like 3 or 4 before I actually met you.
Yeah, I grew up in Arkansas and then moved to New York after college and then just recently moved to the St. Louis area.
That's awesome. I think that sounds well-traveled to me. I've been stuck in New York, Connecticut the whole time. Vin's lived in one place his whole life. Don't let him lie to you. So the Knicks this past week have won 2 of 3 games after the terribleness that was 2 weeks ago. First off, they beat Minnesota in Minnesota 120-107. The Knicks made 19 threes this game after giving up 27 threes to Boston the game before. And on a major positive, they went 23 of 25 from the line as well. Randle led them with 31. Brunson got 23 and RJ got 22. Max, from the Minnesota game on Monday, what were your couple takeaways?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it doesn't matter what positive things Julius Randle does in a basketball game. Knicks fans are going to take to Twitter and hate the guy. It really, he can do whatever he wants in a game, and it doesn't matter if he was hit 6 in the first quarter, 6 it was some, or in the first half, some ridiculous number of threes, shot the ball really well, and to hear Knicks fans tell it online, he was playing the worst game of his career.
I was actually one of those people. He missed 2 in a row, and I got mad before he made 4 in a row.
The dude has become just such a perfect scapegoat for all of the Knicks sort of fan angst of years of being bad. It seems to be channeled into just Julius Randle, which is wild. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about the Nets game, because I think that one is an even more fascinating version of that. But I think the big picture to me is this team is beating the teams they're supposed to, right? And I think 100%. That is my biggest takeaway. To hear a lot of Knicks fans tell it, the sky is falling and this team is awful. I think this team is really handling their business against teams they're supposed to and struggling against teams that are better than them.
That's always a tough place to be as a fan, though, because it's the way the NBA is set up. And I think the part of Knicks Twitter that does feel this way, because I do partly agree, I'd rather either be really good or really bad. It's just, it is being stuck in the middle that, how often are you going to draft Giannis or Jokic or Kawhi? You need generally you need a top 5 pick or to trade for a star, and we keep failing at both of those things. RJ is awesome and all, but Ja Morant and Zion Williamson are indescribably better. And that's just, I think that's where we've always been stuck as Knicks fans, especially in the past 2 decades. Oddly enough, so my biggest thing, I don't know if you've heard any of this stuff I've done recently, but my biggest scapegoat's always Tibbs. And oddly enough, for the Wolves game, the Wolves looked like they were the team that did not like or care about what their coach was saying. Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards both kind of did stuff offensively, but they looked I know they're both negative defenders already. They looked like they tried even less than usual.
I would argue they might be the most disappointing team in the NBA right now, with after going all in for Gobert and trading all of their assets to come out and play the way they have. I mean, you heard sort of pundits over the summer talk about that Timberwolves team, this team could compete for top 3 in the West in the regular season. They're going to just rack up regular season victories the way they're constructed, and they've done none of that, right? So that is a really frustrating situation if you're a T-Wolves fan, and that thing is spiraling pretty quickly.
It just goes to show, I'll skip the last thing after this. It just goes to show that if you do put all of your eggs in the basket and it's the wrong basket, it's way worse than not putting any eggs in. So moving on, so as you mentioned, the Nets game, the Nets destroyed the Knicks. I think they've won 9 of 10 in this series, unfortunately, which is really sad. 112-85 on Wednesday in the Barclays Center. I actually literally have written down that Randle had the ugliest 24-point, 11 rebound double you'll ever see. So it does sound like you slightly disagree with that, but So I stream a lot of the games where I live, and so I was forced to watch the Nets broadcast. And do you know who Mr. Whammy is?
Is that the old guy that like sits at
Yes.
the free throw line? Okay, yeah.
Yep. So the 80-year-old guy that's been a season ticket holder there for almost 2 decades now. Literally, I watched Randall miss back-to-back free throws, and on the Nets broadcast, they purposely set up so you're staring behind the guy, so you see Mr. Whammy doing crazy things. And before he even shot them, I was like, Randall's not making half his free throws in the first half until they get to the other side of the court. And sure enough, I think he was like 2 of 5 in the first half, and then ended up 6 for 9, or I guess 2 and 4. But yeah, it was terrible. So I know you originally said that you actually think Randall is a scapegoat for the most part. Did you feel that way this game as well, or did you? Because I just saw a lot of low effort plays, like low effort on defense, like going for rebounds more so than defending. And I also disagree with Tibbs putting Reddish on Durant to start, because I know Reddish is our best perimeter defender, but the height difference is just too much to bear. So what was your overall takeaway for Randall and this game as a whole?
I think my frustration was, again, sort of getting online after the game and to hear people talk about it. You would have assumed Randall went 3 for 20 from the field, right? And
Right.
that he was 3 for 20 with 6 turnovers, like that kind of game. Knicks not named Julius Randle shot 29% from the field in that game, right? It was a terrible shooting game for every other player. And I want to make clear, I'm not saying I thought Randall was good that against the Nets, but arguing that he was the reason that offense looked like it did, or arguing that he was the reason that the team lost the way they did, is just disingenuous to me. Like there is nothing factually to me that backs up the idea that Randall was the reason the Knicks lost that game. I mean, Brunson and Barrett were terrible against the Nets. Not many people, I heard a few, but not many folks
They were
wanted to
bad. They
mention.
shot a combined 9 of 28 between the two of them.
And I believe had 6 turnovers between the two of them as well, right?
Yep, 3 each.
So not many people. I did hear, I think Jonathan Macri mentioned it in his post game, but not many people wanted to even talk about how terrible Jalen Brunson was on defense against Sumner against the Nets, right? Like that put us in a bad situation offensively or defensively, like his inability to stop anything at the point of attack.
Also, 3 of our other better players, like 3 of the dudes that contribute consistently, Reddish shot 0 of 7, Obi shot 2 of 7, and Evan Fournier, who, I mean, sometimes can shoot now, I guess, also shot 2 of 7. So between those 3 guys, 4 of 21 is also terrible.
Right. And yet to get online, all you see is Julius Randle is the problem, right? And we're sitting here again. I understand. There's stats and there's eye test, and you want to make sure that those things align. What I'm telling some Knicks fans is I think your eyes are a little biased at this point, and you are looking for the flaws in Randall's game because he has become such a convenient scapegoat. And last year, I also want to make clear, I think he earned it last year. I don't think he did. I think he earned that moniker last year. The man is playing significantly better this year than he did last year. And in games like against the Nets, he had zero support. And I understand Brunson is this new player to the team, and RJ is this sort of young, hopeful piece. And you don't want to necessarily like come at those guys because it does take away sort of the one thing Knicks fans have had for 20 years, which is hope that things will get better, right?
Right.
And you don't want to take that away from yourself, right? You don't want to talk about the flaws in RJ's game or Julius or Brunson being bad on defense. But the fact of the matter is, Julius Randle may not have been good, but he was easily the best Knick on the floor against the Nets. And at some point, people have to recognize that this is a flawed team. Like this is an at bet. The construction of this team, the players they have, the coach they have, something isn't fitting right. And at best, this is a mediocre team, middle of the range team as constructed.
I mean, this team is set up to go 40-42 in the worst way. Literally, it's like they have beaten every team that they're supposed to, and they have lost every team they're supposed to. And outside of the Memphis game, those losses aren't even like close games. They're all by 8+ points.
I mean, we should also consider ourselves lucky to some degree. I don't think the Knicks beat the Sixers if Embiid and Harden are both healthy and playing that
Agreed.
game, right? So like that's a win that we stole early this season, right? The prior to the season beginning, we shouldn't have beaten the Timberwolves. You know what I mean? Like if on paper that was a better team. So there are actually some wins we've gotten this year that maybe before the season started we wouldn't have predicted as Knicks W's. So like I don't know. It's just so hard with the amount of social media we have and the amount of coverage we have for this team. It's so hard not to live and die with every single win or loss. You know what I mean?
It's a long season. It's 82 games. To move on from there, so one thing real quick about the Nets game, two signs that you knew they were going to lose regardless of what was happening. I guess it's in hindsight, but Royce O'Neal ended with a game high plus 44. And I don't care about plus minus too much, but that's ridiculous. And then Ben Simmons actually smiled and laughed at one point this game. And if Ben Simmons is enjoying basketball and you're the other team, you're going to lose that game. Because he doesn't look like he enjoys anything anymore. And then lastly,
and Seth Curry played like Steph.
Oh, yeah. No, you got 23 points. I wrote it down. You wrote 23 points on 13 shots, 6 of 11 from 3. This dude came in on fire. Also, last thing, Edmond Sumner, by being 6'5" and lanky, just destroyed Brunson. Like, took him out of the game offensively at the beginning. He got anything he wanted. Like, if I was doing the who the F is that guy of the week, it would have been Edmond Sumner at the end of this. And then lastly, we did beat the Pistons last night. We actually beat in 10 games in a row. So every time the Nets beat us, we beat the Pistons. So that's nice. They should always line the games up like this. 121 to 112. So yeah, they actually lost 8 straight prior to winning 10 straight. So very weird overall series between these two teams over the past decade. RJ had the game we all were looking for a while, 35-5 on 10 of 17 shooting, which is phenomenal because he's been shooting below 40 for a lot of these games. Brunson went 26, 7 and 4 steals, super steady hand. And then Randle got 21, 8 and 5. And it was like a quiet 21, 8 and 5 because RJ and Brunson led the way. Grimes managed to actually play good-looking minutes. He did get 3 fouls in 7 minutes, which I attribute partly to rust and partly because Alec Burks is a foul-drawing wizard. And then, so before I do the Pistons stuff, what was your takeaway from last night's game, Knicks-wise?
I mean, that is the best version of this team offensively. That we can see, right? It's like because the shots were also fairly evenly distributed, right? I think Randle actually finished with more shots than Brunson or RJ, but it feels like we need all 3 of those dudes to have a decent game for this team to have a shot to win, right? Like Agreed. All 3 of those guys need to play well offensively if this team is going to have any kind of shot. And truthfully, it doesn't really matter what everyone else does. If those 3 dudes are on, this offense will look good. And by on, I also don't mean just hitting shots. I mean like sort of playing in sync and playing with each other and feeding off of each other. RJ finishing around the rim last night makes a huge difference for him. He shot better from 3 last night, which makes a huge difference for him. I mean, like it is consistency. It's been the thing for his entire career thus far. Like RJ averages 20 by scoring 12 one game and 35 the next, you know? And so it's like I would love to see more consistency from him, but it is games like last night that do continue to string you along chasing that carrot of like, could RJ be the dude? Like, could RJ be an all-star caliber player? I don't personally tend to land in that boat. I don't think he's ever going to get to that point. I think if he was playing in a market that wasn't New York, I think he'd have no shot of being an all-star just based on the way he plays right now.
Right.
But games like last night are the games that continue to go, man, maybe we do need to hold off a little bit longer and continue to build around this guy.
If he could just put it all together. And the thing is that people forget, I don't like using his age as a factor because he's been in the league. It's his 4th year now. Guys don't really hit their best anymore until they're like 28 to 31. I think because of like the way health and technology and like training, conditioning, eating habits have all advanced in the past 30 years or so. Like guys used to hit their peak at 26, and by the time they hit 30, it's the wrong side of 30, they would say. I think now with all the technology and training we have, it's 28 to 31. So I still think he's 4 years away from hitting his real peak. But his real peak might be he makes like 2 All-Star games his whole career, and he still has like an 18-year career kind of thing. So I think that might be where you're at. Also we played the Sixers without Embiid and Harden. We played the Pistons without Cade Cunningham, which is another positive. So Bojan Bogdanovic led them in scoring with 25, and then Alec Burks was second on the team with 17, I believe. Did I get that right? Yep. And it was Alec Burks' first game of the year coming off the bench for them. They actually were down the whole game after the first quarter. They cut it to 6 a couple times in the fourth, but couldn't get any closer. And I really, watching Alec Burks last night was like, man, if we just didn't make this dude play point guard for some reason, he'd actually still be useful for us off the bench in certain spots. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I of the moves we had to make to get Brunson, like I understand why we did what we did. I think adding Jalen Brunson was the right thing to do. I would do it over again 10 times out of 10. Having said that, the one that hurt the most was losing Alec Burks. I mean, that sort of spark plug offense off the bench that he can provide for you, being able to slot in and play as a starter when you need him to, when injuries, necessitate it. I liked the guy. He was very fun and very easy to root for. You're right. Again, sort of coming back to Tibbs as a leader, he was just incredibly miscast last year. The guy should not have been a starting point guard in the NBA at any point in time in his career, right? Like that's not who he is. So I'm happy for him that he's. I hope that I know last night was his first game. I hope he continues to get run in Detroit and play that way. And then who knows, maybe trade deadline time, some contender takes a flyer on him and brings him in.
I want Alec Burks to see success on a NBA team in such a real way. Like I want him to be a 6th or 7th man off a bench for like a 4 or 3 seed somewhere that actually can move far in the playoffs. Because that dude's so, like you said, he's so fun to cheer for.
And there would be one game. There would absolutely be one game in the playoffs that team didn't win if not for his contributions, right? Like that would 100%. Absolutely happen.
100%. He plays similarly to Lou Williams, which is there's a time where Lou Williams gets 30 in a postseason game. And you're like, damn, I just lost to Lou Williams. Say the same thing about Alec Burks. So Max, your main contributions to sports editing and sports editorials anymore is being the fan-sided site expert for Arkansas Razorbacks. That's correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I love that I have you on today because like we were saying before, 3 of the players on Arkansas helped make this be the second best recruiting class in the country last year behind Duke. Of course, it's always Duke. But this is the best recruiting class they've had for men's college basketball? Is it ever, like in the past certain amount of time? When's the last time they were ranked this high?
I got to be honest. I don't remember a time that they had a top 2 recruiting class. There may have been one that I'm forgetting. I know there have been a couple of recruiting classes in history that were, laced with some, 5-star talent and a lot of, 4-star guys. I don't know that we have had this collection of top level talent ever. I mean, like to put it in context, Moses Moody was the first one and done in program history. Like think about how recently Moses Moody was drafted. That was the first one and done player in program history, right? So like we haven't had that level of talent kind of ever.
That's actually insane. Why was it like a program thought process? Was it like, because I know one and dones are only back again they've been one and dones for a while, but like they didn't have anyone back when like high schoolers were drafted going one and done. Like how is that a thing?
Well, I mean, so looking back at it, so Al Jefferson was a Arkansas commit and then ultimately just went straight to the NBA, right? So like had he come, he likely would have been a one and done kind of player. We also had, just truthfully, from about 2000 until recently, just a lot of sort of mediocre basketball. I mean, we have some NBA talent in the league. I mean, Bobby Portis obviously is an Arkansas guy. Daniel Gafford is an Arkansas guy, but none of them, once a Knick, always a Knick, Bobby Portis.
Oh, yeah.
We've had NBA level talent, but most of them just weren't that like immediately go pro after their freshman year talent, right? Like Bobby came in and left after 2, but really had to develop over that summer and really his pro credentials skyrocketed in year 2 at Arkansas. So I think the combination of like bad basketball, there's also this sort of in Arkansas, because we don't have a pro program, there really is this belief of like, we need to get in-state kids and we need to build this program with like kids who want to be Razorbacks, right? So when in-state recruiting is lean and doesn't have sort of top level national talent, you're going to have lean recruiting classes, right? But when you look, Moses Moody is an Arkansas kid. Nick Smith Jr., who we're going to talk about in a bit, is an Arkansas kid, right? Yep. So like being able to land and keep some of that top level talent is making a huge difference in our like national recruiting rankings.
When the year that Moses Moody was a freshman, do you remember what his overall ranking was going into the year?
I don't remember his overall ranking as a recruit. I also like, as a person who loves college sports, I like the game of recruiting, but once a recruiting class is signed, I immediately forget what rank people were, because like then it's about what you do on the court. But I know that like Moses was a projected lottery pick his entire 1 year at Arkansas, right? So like he came in with that sort of pro pedigree. And again, we just haven't had dudes like that.
Let's talk about the dudes you have now, actually, because there are 3 of them.
Yeah.
Starting with, so the places I looked, just for everyone that's listening knows kind of where I got an idea from. RealNBAGM.com, Bleacher Report, and NBC Sports were the 3 places I looked to kind of figure out the ranges of these 3 guys. First off, we have Jordan Walsh, who's 6'7", 200 pounds, out of DeSoto, Texas. He's projected to go anywhere between the early 20s and the late 30s between the 3 sites. So Max, for Jordan, what can you tell me about him?
Yeah, well, so with Razorbackers, which is the fan-sided site that I'm the expert for, we have this segment we're doing after each game called Real Razorbackers, and it's essentially just a Twitter film thread, right, of clips from the game that night. And last night was Jordan Walsh night. All I did was watch and clip different Jordan Walsh film, and there's a lot to like about him. And in fact, right now, if you ask me, he's the one I think I'm probably most excited about as a pro prospect, just because, especially from a Knicks perspective, right? Because I will say this right off the top, he can't shoot right now. So like right now, there is no threat. There is no threat from deep. So he is not a 3-point shooter. In fact, we played Fordham last night, and every time he caught the ball in the corner, the shortest distance 3-point shot, Fordham was sagging off of him by about 5 feet. And they were just daring him to shoot from 3. Now, the reason Fordham is sagging off from deep is because he is a very, very strong athletic finisher going to the rim. Right. So he has a decent mid-range jumper as well. So once he in the second half, they kind of Musselman kind of adjusted the offense, and instead of having Walsh start in the corner, Walsh sort of came in and was, a few feet in, near the dunker spot, kind of like that range. Right. And from there in the second half, the dude made a ton of plays. Right. So would catch and immediately go, right? And so there was one play where he caught and went and found drew the defense in, found a guy for an easy assist. There was another one where they didn't help off and he just got an easy floater. There was another one where they sort of, again, backed up because they were concerned about his ability to get to the rim. And he hit a nice mid-range jumper, right? Pulled up and hit one there. So he is a mid-range guy right now. He's a decent free throw shooter. So that gives you the idea that maybe the 3-point shot could develop with time. I mean, the kid is 18 years old. And so sitting here saying that he can't be a 3-point shooter at some point in his professional career by the time he's 40 doesn't seem fair. I also want to say, we're 2 games in, right? So there is a lot still. Jalen Williams, who was the only Hog who got drafted last year, was not a on pro radar at this point in time last year. So there's a lot of college basketball still to be played. But he's aggressive on defense. He's gotten in foul trouble both games, so I think he's got to work on playing defense without fouling. But there is a lot to like, specifically per shot quality. He's in the 91st percentile in points per possession, right?
Oh
So
wow.
this is a guy who, when he shoots, he's scoring the basketball, and that efficiency is something that you'd love, especially as a dude. If he does stay in that second round range, like I think a team could get a steal with him in the second round.
If you were to give him a current or former NBA player comp or two comps, who do you think you would say?
That's a fascinating one. Sean Marion was coming to mind for
Okay.
me for a little while, right? So just like this kind of dude who can lock you down and play some good defense, and is just kind of a kind of do it all Swiss Army knife kind of wing, right? So I think Sean Marion is where I'm at in my comparison for him right now. But that still may be lofty. Like, he may not have Sean Marion's career, but I think a diet Sean Marion, a Sean Marion light, isn't out of the question for him potentially.
And to the point that you made about him not being a 3-point or deep shooter right now, Sean Marion actually ended up with a respectable average in the later ends of his career. I think he got up to like 37, 38% one year with his ugly shot. So, I mean, if you could work your way up to that with great defense and great driving skills, that's awesome. Next up, we got
And
Anthony.
his shot looks significantly better. His
That's
shot
good.
looks significantly better than Sean Marion's does from a form perspective.
I think I shoot like Sean Marion in real life, actually. Next up, we got Anthony Black. He's also 6'7". He weighs 185 pounds. He's from Coppell, Texas. So they're both from Texas. He's projected to go anywhere in the teens. I saw as high as 11, as low as 20. Based on where the Knicks are projected to go with their own draft pick, at least, he seems like the most likely to be drafted where the Knicks would be currently or are projected to be at. So what can you tell us about Black so far?
So he would also be an exciting piece, right? Especially as Derrick Rose continues to age and looking for a sort of who is going to be the backup point guard. Is it Emmanuel Quickley, or do they need to find another player? In that regard, Anthony Black would be incredibly fascinating. He would be, I mean, almost immediately the best point of attack defender on the team, because he is so long. He is so active on defense. He plays really well on that side of the ball, right? And he's not the fastest guy at 6'7", but he also isn't really getting beat by smaller, quicker guards, right? Because he was actually who I did the very first Razorback game, since Nick Smith isn't playing. Spoiler alert. But he was who I watched the first game, and there was a play where he did get beat by a smaller guard, but
Right.
because of the length that he has, he just was still able to contest and disrupt the shot, and then grab the rebound and immediately get the team out in transition.
Oh, wow.
Right. So he is, he operated a ton in the pick and roll against North Dakota State. There was a ton of that. He is struggling to shoot the ball right now. So like he's like 3 for 9 from 3 across 2 games, and is struggling to finish at the rim. He did have in transition just a monster dunk, which I'm hoping maybe was just sort of his, like, I'm going to work out some frustration of not being able to hit layups right now and just put it all into this ball and this rim. But like that, I think that's going to be a skill that he has to continue to develop. But his ability to control the pace is super exciting. If he had another gear, right, if he had that next step, that first step, this might be a top 5 prospect we're talking about. His ability to manage the game in pick and roll, and his ability to find teammates and pass the ball. If he could finish a little stronger and was a little faster, again, I think we're talking about a top 5 prospect. It's also just so exciting because he is built unlike any Razorback point guard we've ever had. Like we have never had a point guard quite like him, just from a size perspective, which is just super exciting and fun for me to watch. I mean, most of our point guards are like 5'11" that we're gonna say are 6'2".
Right.
So having this dude that's legit, 6'7" and long, and has that sort of more Cade Luka kind of build at point, Lonzo kind of build at point is very, very exciting.
I think I read this somewhere. Is he 6'7" with a 7-foot wingspan?
I believe so. Yeah. So
that is long for anyone running the point or distributing the ball. That's insane.
Right. Right. And he uses it. Like he uses it well. And again, he has he knows how to use the screens and like knows when it's time for him to go get his shot versus when it's time to find the roll man or whoever popped. Like he reads the offense and reads the defense, like understands how to run the game really well. He just, again, he has to start finishing better at the rim, and you wish he had another gear once he like uses that screen.
Right. That's impressive to be that size, though, and be able to snake through screens and actually read everything well. Usually, if you're that long and that young, your handle is a little wishy-washy. You're just not even fully there yet. Who would you say his current or former comp is?
I mean, I kind of already alluded to it. I think he's got sort of Lonzo Ball kind of potential, right? So like a dude who in transition is going to be nasty. I think he might be a little bit better as a point guard in the half court, but also it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up being that sort of secondary connector kind of player when he got to the NBA, because he lacks that foot speed off the screen. Like it's not De'Aaron Fox coming around a screen and ending up at the rim in 2 steps. Right. He is a little slower. And because of that, I can see sort of that Lonzo connection. But the exciting thing to me was that play I described earlier, the ability to get beat by a quicker guy, still be able to defend him because of his length, get the rebound and immediately have the team out in transition is super exciting. Right. And that on a second unit, for the Knicks would be fantastic. Like, I can see him. We know Quickly has a really good connection with Obi. I could see Anthony Black being that dude who gets out in transition and immediately finds Obi for lobs and all that kind of stuff.
Would absolutely.
But yes, I also recognize that to the Julius Randle haters that I continued to next year have Obi Toppin slotted as the backup 4. And I apologize. You can send your hate mail to @BigNickEnergy
_ but thank you. I appreciate that. Max, to that point, though, it does sound like in the back of your head, you're like, Julius probably also won't be on this team next year. There's a strong possibility there. For the last guy, though, so I know you said Nick Smith Jr. hasn't played yet. He is by all accounts, by far the highest projected of the 3. Like all 3 websites had him either 3rd or 4th. So right after the Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson combo. He's 6'5", weighs 185 pounds. And as you alluded to before, he was born in Arkansas. He was born in Sherwood, Arkansas. Since he hasn't played for the Razorbacks yet, what do you know about him from coming in, and what exactly makes him a top 5 projected pick this year?
Well, he played in like a couple of exhibitions, right? That weren't televised, right? So I got to read box scores. I didn't get to see him play.
Right.
What I know about this team is again, they're Anthony Black not shooting well from 3, doesn't look comfortable. Jordan Walsh, teams are daring him to shoot from 3. Nick Smith is supposed to be the dude that can help stretch the floor for this team right now. He hasn't shown it a ton in exhibition games. He didn't shoot it super well from deep. But I think that's going to be the big piece. And he projects as sort of a combo guard. So I think he's a guy who can run the offense if Anthony Black is out or in foul trouble or whatever. He also is going to be great sort of drawing up plays for him off ball. My understanding is that he projects as like a dude who is going to be able to score at a high clip wherever he ends up, right? So whatever team he's on, whether he's a dude who's going to have the ball in his hands a lot or a guy who's going to be playing off ball, he's going to be able to score quite a bit and efficiently. Again, he hasn't done that super well in the 2 exhibition games. One of them was against like Rogers State, right? And he didn't shoot well. The other one though was against Texas, right? And so that is a future SEC program that he's playing against, and he didn't shoot it super well. So I'm just excited to see him get on the court and see what he does with this team, because I think right now offensively, this team is very strong on the defensive end. Offensively, there's a lot to be desired. I think the reason is because he's sort of that key that is missing. Like he is the piece that's going to unlock the offense, because he's going to do so much bending the defense and stretching the floor that like everyone else is going to look better. Right now, everyone else is having to carry an additional weight. Right. At the same time, I will say if this kid goes through a load management season this year, I'm not going to say that I blame him, right? Like if he only plays in every, a third of the games, let's say, for the Hogs this year, I'm not going to be mad at the dude. You are staring down generational wealth in the NBA. You're going to get zero pushback from me if you only play in every third game, because you're trying to make sure that you stay healthy and get that money. So, he's purely theoretical from a Razorback fan standpoint. But he is, from a theoretical perspective, he is supposed to be the most exciting of the three. So I'm stoked to get to watch him.
Is there a fear at all for Razorback fans that he just pulls a Shaedon Sharp from Kentucky last year and doesn't play?
Not yet. So I think he was out and shot around in warmups yesterday. I don't think we're at that point. We have not this week, but next week we're at the Maui Invitational, which, a lot of high profile programs there. If he doesn't play in Maui, I think we should be seeing that fear, that we might have to start worrying about that. But also, again, I will say it speaks to the program Eric Musselman has put together, that we could even be having that conversation potentially, right? That, like, just playing in practice against the talent that he has accrued is as good as playing in games. Like, that is a pretty next level thing for Razorback basketball that we haven't seen in maybe ever, that collection of talent. I mean, we've won a national championship and we did not have that level of NBA talent, right? So, I hope that's not the case. I hope we get to see him play, but also as a grown man, I'm not going to blame the kid for not, and making sure that he stays healthy and gets his money.
If you're projected to go third or fourth and you don't have to play the whole year to do it, then I kind of get it, honestly.
Right.
And to your point about the Maui Invitational, between that and the Coaches Classic, those are two of the biggest early season tournaments. I would agree with you that if he didn't play in that or wasn't able to for whatever reason, I'd have a slight fear. Between the three of them, well, not Smith, I'm sorry. Between Black and Walsh, who do you think is more likely to fix their shot sooner?
I would say Walsh. For lack of a better word, Black's release is a little janky. Like, he is it
like Killian Hayes last night, janky?
I don't know if I'd put it at that level. It's a bit flat-footed, right?
Okay.
It's flat-footed on his shot, and, like, he just doesn't look confident shooting from deep, right? He also isn't a great free throw shooter, right? So I think Walsh gives me more confidence just from what I've seen in mid range and his free throw shooting. Like, I'm more confident in him fixing it. The release also just looks prettier than Black's does. But yeah, so I'd probably lean Walsh. But again, I'm not going to put a cap on Black after 2 games of college basketball.
That makes sense. They still have a full season ahead of them.
Right.
Max, last thing I'll ask you, and then I'll let you go. I have to go get ready for this wedding. The Knicks playing.
Hope it's yours. I hope it's your wedding. And you were like, I'm recording a podcast in the morning first. Honey, you got to deal with it. This is who I am.
Not for my wedding. Not yet. So the Knicks play the Thunder on Sunday tomorrow. The Jazz on Tuesday. The Nuggets on Wednesday. That's a rough back-to-back. And then the Warriors on Friday. This is a crazy road trip they're about to go on. So between those 4 games, home for OKC, and then at the Jazz, Nuggets, and Warriors, what do you think our record is this week?
I mean, I think it's 1-3. I think we beat OKC at home. I think Shea shows out. I think Shea has a big game. If
Brunson, for other teams.
Right. If Brunson had trouble with Sumner, I worry about what he's going to do against Shea. So, like, I think he has a big game, but I think the Knicks win. I have zero confidence in us beating any of the other 3. The Jazz are playing great team basketball. Jokic always destroys us. I mean, in fact, the last several times we played the Nuggets, I feel like that game was over in the first quarter. Like, it is.
I went to the Nuggets Knicks game last year in Denver. It was over before halftime. It was literally like 76 to like 49 at the half.
Right. So that worries me. And again, I think the Warriors are a better team and should beat the Knicks. Right. So I think it's a 1-3 week. which worries me, right? Because if
Yeah,
I 1-3 is tough over the course of a week, because that is a lot of time for Knicks fans to get in their feelings.
that it is, especially on a back-to-back at Utah, at Denver. The altitude and the way those two teams are playing is going to be super duper rough. Um, I'm gonna, I'm actually gonna say 1-3, but I think we're gonna lose to OKC and then surprise one of the other three teams. Probably not Denver based on recent history. I don't think we've won in Denver in like 8 years. But are terrible. We've been terrible under Tibbs on these Sunday matinee games. They just don't wake up for them. They start out lethargic. We're down 15 at every half. Like, I just don't have faith against OKC, even though they're an inferior team. And oddly enough, I feel like we've played the Warriors pretty well in our recent history. So I'm gonna say we start out 0-3 and then surprise the Warriors.
Are any of those games nationally televised? Do you know?
Let me look up real fast. Nope, nope, nope. And the Warriors game is.
So Warriors nationally televised, that could be the one that we steal and get to 2-2. I would agree with you. Nationally televised, Randall is going to have a 10-5 game.
Yes. Also, if we knock on wood, I mean, with the way our season's been going, for some reason, all these good teams are missing one of their two best players when we play them.
Right. And like, it's not like the Warriors have been world beaters to start the season either. Like they've had struggles. Like I think that's a potentially winnable game. I worry about a team like the Jazz that plays good team basketball. Like our defense and the rotations on defense have been atrocious. Like you would think on paper that should be a win, but I worry significantly about that one could be a double-digit loss to the Jazz, which, man, if that happens, good luck, Knicks. Like it is, you are going to be roasted.
I'm worried that Markkanen and Sexton are going to combine for 60 points that game.
Right.
So Max, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciated. Is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, you can find like Razorbackers at Razorbackers FS on Twitter. And like I said, after every Razorback basketball game, we're doing the Real Razorbackers segment, which is just, film threads of the game. And again, especially with the level of NBA talent, there are a couple other guys, Ricky Council and Trayvon Brazil, who are also potential NBA draft picks that on this roster. Like there's a lot of pro level talent that we're going to be showcasing. So it's a good chance to get to know, some NBA draft prospects.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm definitely going to keep following the Razorbacks more this year. You guys can find me at Joey Landolfa on both Twitter and Instagram. For my 3-leg parlays this year, I won again last night. I'm 4 out of 10. So if you guys have been following me for the year, you'd be up over double your money. The $100 I put in, I've received $216 back. So if you were making $100 bets instead of $10 bets, you'd be at $2,000. So that's awesome. I don't have that money to try to kind of risk though right now. Also, we have a bunch of new merchandise at bignickenergy.com. Obviously, like and subscribe to our YouTube page, Spotify, Apple Pods, and Podbean. At BigNickEnergy _ on Twitter and at BigNickEnergy on Instagram. Max, let's go Knicks, and I'm hoping for 2-2 and not 1-3. Thanks again, buddy.